Mr. and Mrs. North and South American, all ships at sea, let's go to...
The Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the podcast with news and views from a distinctly conservative atheist perspective, with your hosts, Cephas and Out West. We hope we can entertain, educate, perhaps even enrage you. Now let's begin this episode of the Bitchspot Report. Welcome once again to the latest edition of the Bitchspot Report, the podcast where conservatism and atheism collide. We're your hosts, Cephas and...
Out West.
How's everybody doing this week? There's something, I know I'm going to hit you with this completely blind, but I've been thinking about this a lot this week, so I decided I was just going to spring it on you, and maybe this could be a regular thing. There's a lot of things that just make me seethe every week. Things that you read about, look up, talk about that just kind of pisses the crap out of me. And since I brought it up first, I will go ahead and tell you what's pissed the crap out of me this week. We've been talking a lot about ex-Cardinal Mahoney and his pedophile-protecting ways, and now that he's out of office, he's spending an awful lot of time writing a blog about how horrible it is that everybody's picking on him. He's not really sorry for what he's doing, only just how many people are criticizing him and how horrible it is that he has this cross to bear. Well, look, asshole, maybe if you didn't let all those priests fuck those kids, people wouldn't be pissed at you. Ever think about that? Probably not.
Well, think about this. I mean, the guy basically bankrupted the archdiocese out there.
Yeah.
Because of that. And now he's pissed because people are upset with him. Even Catholics are upset with him.
Yeah, but he doesn't care about any of that. He just cares that he's just so put out that he has to deal with all this horrible stuff that people are saying about him. You earned it, fucknut. Stop being an idiot.
Well, as we talked about last week, I think it would be a horrible thing that he was invited to the Vatican, to the conclave.
And he's there right now.
And he is, yes, to vote on the new pope. That is such a smack in the face. I was going to use words harsher.
Go ahead.
No, but I'm just going to say smack in the face. All those victims out there.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is not going to change one damn Catholic's mind. They're all going to still be part of this stupid religion and financially support this stupid Vatican who is doing all this crap. And they sit there and they whine about it, but they don't actually do anything about it. They don't say, well, screw you people, we're going to go find another religion.
Or screw you people, I never believed in this shit in the first place, and now that you're doing this, I'm out of here.
Yep.
I'm done with the whole mythology of religion in its entirety.
Yeah.
And there are those people that have done that. I have read, in the last 4 or 5 years, several articles online about how many Catholics are actually leaving the church. And they're not going to some evangelical Protestant church. They're just gone.
Yep, and that's a good thing.
And I think I agree. I think it's an excellent thing. And as we know, because we talked about this as well, there's this whole new initiative with the Catholic Church to bring young people into the church. Why?
Because they're losing so many old people.
And they've lost young people as well.
They're losing everybody.
Yes. And it's not just the Catholic Church. We're bashing the Catholic Church right now, which they deserve. But it's the Protestant side of the house as well, where they are losing people and they really need young people to carry on. And they are losing them by droves.
They don't need young people for the same reason the Catholics do. That's a different thing.
Well, but they still need the young people to carry on their mission. And young people, thank goodness, in the 21st century, unlike when we were kids, we were kind of deluded. I admit I was into religion and followed it for a long time. And then it just didn't sync up with me. And I couldn't reconcile it with what I was being taught in school, science, mathematics, and things like that. I couldn't reconcile it. And so that's when I left. I think that today's youth are not even considering it because they see it as something that is outside of reality. And that's where it is.
Yeah, that's a positive, though. That's why religion is failing and non-religion is growing.
Well, we've seen the statistics, right? The nuns. And I don't know how good these statistics are because I haven't delved into it. And I'm a statistician. My math background is statistics. That's not what I do for a living. And I haven't delved into the actual numbers of this, but somewhere around 20% of people in the U.S. and it's mainly younger people under 40 are in the nones category when they're asked about religion. Christian, Islamic, Jewish, whatever, faiths. Well, approximately 20% are into the, checked off none.
None of the above.
Yeah, which doesn't mean they're atheists. It just means, or agnostic. It just means that they don't follow any particular religion or faith. I think that's a good thing.
That's an excellent thing.
When we consider that just about 15 years ago, that number was perilously low, under 10%. That's a great thing.
Yep, we're growing fast.
Yep. And all we need to do is take those nones, that's N-O-N-E-S, by the way. Just thought I'd clarify that. Get them to realize that it's mythology, just like Zeus, just like Thor and Odin, just like all the ancient religions.
Yep.
That no one believes in. ISIS. Those religions, even though they were out there for a couple of thousand years each, they're now gone. And this one and the others associated, the other Abrahamic religions, need to be gone as well, because they do nothing for society. Nothing.
Yeah, nothing positive. They do a lot of negative, but they don't do anything positive.
Well, and that's what I meant. They don't do anything positive for society.
Yeah. So have you heard anything or read anything this week that's really pissing you off, or should we move on? And like I said, I know this is completely out of the blue, and that was intentional this week. But maybe in the future we'll kind of share one thing that's just pissing the crap out of us.
No, I don't have anything that's really grinding my gears yet this week.
All right. Well, I mean, fair enough.
Maybe we should start a segment called "This Really Grinds My Gears."
Yeah, or something.
Something like that.
You never know. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on.
And now for the news.
We've done a lot of talking about the Pope stepping down and what that might mean, but in a news story this week, we might have found the real reason. In a story in The Guardian, reports linking the Pope's resignation to a secret network of gay prelates in the Vatican, some of whom are reportedly being blackmailed from the outside. When the Pope's butler released documents not long ago, he said he was doing it because the Pope refused to acknowledge things that were happening within the Holy See. Maybe Pope Benedict is really stepping down because his eyes have been opened to all the things that have been going on under his nose, from the sex scandal around the world to the sex scandals we don't know about right inside his own house. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that was a really interesting story, because apparently there was an entire investigation and there was a huge report compiled that, of course, the Vatican is not allowing anybody else to see, that documents basically gay activity within the Vatican. And it's kind of horrifying to one extent, in that even though the Guardian put this out, and it was actually an Italian newspaper that actually broke the story, that they are trying to still cover this up even after it's out there. They're not denying it, and they're not affirming it.
Yeah, officially they refuse to confirm or deny anything about it, and that's always a bad sign, because it means there's something to it.
But they've apparently have an official report. From what I read, it's apparently I think it's around 500 pages.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's a lot of documentation.
Yeah, well, what's even worse is that supposedly Benedict has secret documents that he's put together that are locked in a safe in the papal chambers to inform whoever gets elected next of all the bad stuff that's been going on in the Catholic Church, so that he can't say, well, I just didn't know about any of this stuff. So if they've got, and it's supposed to be 2 really big red-bound notebooks, so apparently there's an awful lot of crap going on that they're not telling anybody.
And that's what I'm talking about, red-bound notebooks.
It's not just this, though. It's
approximately
everything.
500 pages.
It's everything. It's all the sex scandals. It's everything that's going on in the church. The whole church is starting to fall apart. And I don't know how much more scandal they can go through before everybody just starts going, yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Well, but this church has been through so many scandals, and they're still alive. People of faith will never give up. They'll say, well, there's always bad apples, right? There's bad apples in every profession. There's bad apples in everywhere. And all we have to do is weed out the bad apples, get rid of those people, and everything will be fine. We can go back to normal. But the problem is the Catholic Church has had bad apples for 2,000 fucking years and still do. All they end up doing is obfuscating, hiding their intent, and not being upfront. I mean, isn't that the idea of being a Christian is to confess, your sins, be open about it and say, hey, I'm going to be a better person. I did this bad thing. I'm very sorry. I will be a better person in the future. Well, what this church does is, as far as the media is concerned and the rest of the world, is obfuscate everything. And then when somebody digs down and tries to find something and thinks they find something, they hide it. They won't open up and say, yeah, this bad thing happened and we're sorry. If they did that, I would have some respect for them. But they have done none of that.
Well, they hide it all. They're used to having so much power, so much political and religious power in the world that they can get away with anything. There was a pope that was holding a whorehouse in the Vatican. They get away with anything. And nobody ever walks away. And it's absurd to watch these people try to use these old techniques where they just say, hey, we're the Vatican, we can do anything. And
because at one point in history, and not that long ago, they were a world power. Right. I mean, governments rose and fell based on what the Pope said.
Yeah, but that's not the case today.
Correct. And what I don't understand is how it annoys me to no end when I see, it doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican president, go over and kiss the ring of this old white piece of shit.
Yep.
And prostrate themselves in front of this pedophile enabling racist. Think about it. Let's go back to the 90s for a moment. Rwanda. You remember Rwanda?
Oh, yeah.
In Africa. A lot of people don't. Do you know that was the most Catholic nation in Africa at the time? The most.
Yeah.
Do you know who propagated that slaughter in Rwanda? It was the Catholic Church.
Of course it was.
A lot of people don't know that.
A lot of people don't care.
You didn't see that really in the papers.
Well, of course not, because the papers want to sell papers.
You saw about the Tutsis and the Hutus and wherever they were. And one tribe killing another, but it was a Catholic Church that was decrying the sins of one tribe. And so that made the other tribe get out there and start killing those people. It was a Catholic Church. How many people died in that genocide? 800,000?
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing is just politics.
Well, but again, this was the Catholic Church. And it was a Catholic Church that ignored the Holocaust during World War II.
Ignored it. They helped it.
They actually helped it. And in fact, it wasn't until 1964 that the Catholic Church admitted to that. Until 1964 that the Catholic Church renounced, 1964, announced anti-Semitism.
Well, that's just because it was publicly unpopular.
But think about it. 1964. Wow.
Well, it wasn't until John Paul II that they actually said, we're sorry for our part in the Holocaust. That was in the 90s.
Yeah, that was in the late 90s. Actually, that was around 2000.
Yeah, it was pretty close.
That was in the year 2000.
It was just before he died.
Well, he died in 2005.
Yeah.
But John Paul II came out in 2000 and said, I'm sorry about the Holocaust and our part in it. I'm sorry about this. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about... And you know what? I actually had some respect for him for that. I did. That, okay, he came out and he didn't right any of the wrongs, but he admitted to the wrongs of the church. But did that mean anything? Did that say anything? That's just something to be as far as like, okay, I respect you for at least admitting you were wrong.
Well, it's not like he could really do anything to fix it.
No, he can't. What can you do? Bring back to life 6 million people that you don't kill?
And he had nothing to do with any of that, but let's face it, you can't go out and catch all the Nazis that you smuggled out of Germany. You can't do anything about that.
Again, I think he did the right thing back then.
Oh, sure.
And again, I have to respect that. But again, what has the church, the Catholic Church, done then, I mean, here we are in 2013. This was in 2000.
Yeah.
Now we're in 2013. What have they done since then?
Nothing. It was just a showpiece the last time. They didn't really mean it. Just like when they said, hey, we're not anti-Semitic. Of course you are. You're just saying you're not because it's publicly unpopular to hold that position. Doesn't mean you changed your mind. You're just trying to go for popularity. That's how all the religions work. I mean, when a church will come out and say, hey, we're not against gay marriage. Well, you are, but you know that it's swinging the other way. So you're just making a public stand so that hopefully you're not hated as much as everybody else. I don't buy any of this.
Yeah, I don't buy anything. I mean, I have respect for religionists that come out and say, hey, I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
But they never come out and say, we made a mistake. They said, oh, well, we changed our mind. Or, I mean, they never even say we were reading the Bible wrong. They just come out and say, well, God convinced us that we were wrong, something was wrong. And that's not really what he meant. It's like, you guys are idiots.
And yes, they're idiots. And now to the next story.
Take it away.
Thank you. I found this story really interesting, and it came out on February 25th. UN, it's the United Nations, told atheists face discrimination around the globe. This was a very interesting story to me. And I'll just kind of give you the first paragraph and let you take it from there, Cephas. Atheists, humanists, and free thinkers face widespread discrimination around the world with expression of their views criminalized and subject in some countries to capital punishment, the United Nations was told on Monday. That was Monday, the 25th of February. What do you think about that?
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to go back to what we said about rights a couple of episodes ago, in that, yes, absolutely, these people are being discriminated against, quote unquote discriminated against, but let's face it, these people are in countries where atheism is illegal, and these people are doing things that, let's be honest, they're bringing attention to their atheism. They're not being quiet about it. And so they're violating the law. They're getting captured and they're being prosecuted for violating the law. And then they're whining about it. I'm sorry. I just don't really buy that.
Well, let me go down to the fourth paragraph here in the story. In Afghanistan, this makes your point, Iran, the Maldives, Mauritania, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Sudan, atheists can face the death penalty.
Yes, they can.
And so, this story kind of just makes your point right there, is that these people know, because they live there, maybe they're born and raised there, that this is against the law. This is not what these governments want from their citizens. And here's what I would say. If I was even a resident in, let's say, Kuwait, and I've been to Kuwait a lot, so I know the country, I kept my non-religious beliefs to myself. I didn't even tell my American co-workers what my non-religious beliefs were, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, you keep that to yourself. Now, you may have a small group of people around you that believe the same way you do, but you basically, if you're living in that country, you know what the laws are, and you keep it to yourself. What I found interesting about this story is that it came up to the UN Human Rights Committee, which is chaired by Syria, I think. Human Rights Council.
Yeah.
I think it's chaired this year by, or at least it was last year, by Syria. This is the Human Rights Council, and it has. And before it's been chaired by other countries that have absolutely no human rights in their countries. And so I find it an interesting story.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, in a perfect world, it would be great if everybody had the same rights and we all agreed that all humans have the rights to certain things. But we haven't done that. It's not a perfect world. Let's stop pretending that it is.
Yeah, let's get over it and move on. And yeah, I hate anybody to be persecuted for their non-belief. But then either you chose to live in that country
Yeah, I mean, why aren't you just getting up and leaving?
Or you were born in that country and like you said, didn't get up and leave. Because guess what? The United States is one of the greatest countries in the world for immigrants, for persecuted people. You know, it's one of the greatest countries in the world for that. And you could fly, come to the United States, you know, walk across the Atlantic, whatever you do.
Well, it's kind of hard to walk across the Atlantic. But you could.
But you know, that was a joke. But
in most countries over there, they're not surrounded completely by other countries that have those views. There's very few places where you can't just look one country over and have more freedom. You know, you can walk to that border. We're talking large deserts. They don't have guards standing every 5 feet all the way around the country. You can easily cross the border into another country and then ask for political asylum. It's not that hard. These people who just sit there and go, well, this is my home. Well, your home sucks. Let's deal with the reality. Yeah,
and I'm going to go to prison or I'm going to be killed because I state my beliefs on the internet or, in crowds in the street, soapbox type of thing. No, that really reeks with me. Again, I think it was interesting is that the UN, who I have absolutely no respect for, has a report on this. And it has to do with atheists, humanists, and free thinkers. Wow, that's interesting.
That won't do anything about it.
Well, of course they won't. I mean, this is like a useless organization. And that the United States spends over $1 billion a year supporting, and it's a completely fucking useless organization. You know what? You do know where the UN building is built, right?
Yeah.
It's built in the former meatpacking district of New York City, where they slaughtered and packed cows.
Yeah.
Well, what has the UN done since 47, 48, when they came into being?
Not a whole lot.
They've condoned the slaughter and the packing of millions of people. I'm sorry. I just have no respect for that. And I think that the United States should tell those people to move off shore, go somewhere else. We should bulldoze those buildings down to the ground and reclaim it for something else.
Oh, hey, if I don't care if they stay as long as they pay their own way. If they want to pay us the rent for those buildings, knock themselves out. We should, they shouldn't be tax exempt or anything. We should collect taxes on everything that they do.
I want them to be gone off the shores of the United States because they don't really care what we say anymore. Now, in the 40s, they did. We are still, to some degree, a superpower, and they do care what we say. But in the majority, they don't care.
Well, the problem is nobody cares what they say. They make all these different rulings, and everybody just kind of goes, whatever. And nobody really gives a damn what they say, so they're pointless.
And I agree. They're pointless. So why don't we reclaim that whole part of, southern Manhattan and, hey, let's you and I go in there and buy the land and put up condos.
Ridiculously overpriced condos. That's
exactly. We can make a lot of money off of that.
Nah, that's all right. Yeah, they got enough ridiculously overpriced condos.
Okay, I'm sorry. And anyway, the next story is...
It's commonplace for theists to claim that being religious makes them better people, but prison populations tell a different story. We've known for a long time that entry statistics, what incoming prisoners report of their beliefs so the prisons can ensure that they have enough priests and pastors to allow inmates to practice their religions, demonstrate that claims of religious adherence is much more pronounced in prison than in the general population. Atheism, on the other hand, is far underrepresented. There are far fewer atheists in prison by percentage than there are in the general population. However, we're finding that people who claim to be religious or who convert to a religion often use those beliefs to further or strengthen their criminal activity. It not only doesn't make them better people, it often gives them an excuse to be worse people.
Oh, exactly. And I've believed this for years and years and years, is that you have this criminal, this person that maybe has killed somebody and had no remorse over that killing and is sentenced to, 25 years to life, and then goes into prison and suddenly converts to Christianity or I think the two biggest ones there are Christianity or Islam. Converts and becomes this sainted person in prison. And then you find all these liberal motherfuckers that want to allow this son of a bitch out of prison. There's this, let me go back to, what's this guy? Holy cow, he's been in prison for, holy crap, almost my entire adult life. Abu Muslima or something, in Philadelphia, 30 odd years ago, killed a cop. Multiple witnesses saw him do this. He was put on death row. He became, I don't know, I think he converted to Islam. He became a quote-unquote good guy. And so now all of Hollywood, of course, not all of Hollywood, but
large portions,
a large portion of Hollywood, and other liberal factions out there want him, released because, no, he didn't do it.
Of course he did it. Even he admits he did it, but he's better now. Okay, great. Did that guy come back to life? No? All right, shut up.
So what do we do about these people?
Well, I think the funniest thing in all this is you look at Christianity in particular, and it lets you say you're sorry and be forgiven for your sins. Well, why the hell would a criminal who is a Christian or converts to Christianity or anything else really give a damn about the crimes that they're committing? Because all they have to do is go, whoops, I'm sorry, and, wipe the slate clean, and then they can keep going.
Well, I made this case on your blog the other day about, Calvinism, John Calvin. And there are, John Calvin was he basically, he didn't really start it himself, but his writing started, for instance, the Methodist Church. And John Calvin wrote that basically once saved, always saved. Okay. And he also wrote that you were either predestined to be saved or you weren't. Okay. So in other words, between you and I, one of us, maybe both of us, but let's say, let's take the wild hair out there, that one of us, no matter what we do, are predestined to be saved.
Well, no, it's even worse than that based on what you were saying, was both of us. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference what we do, because if you're saved, nothing you can do can make you lose that salvation. So you can go out and rape and murder and kill and do whatever you want, and you can't possibly lose it.
Exactly.
The other person, no matter what they do, no matter how good of a person they are, or if they go out and rape, murder, and kill, they can't be saved no matter what. So what the hell difference does it make what you do? So in either case, it's irrelevant.
Exactly. And how people buy into this eludes me, actually. I would love it. If there were such a thing as an afterlife and a heaven, or just an afterlife, forget heaven. Forget the whole God thing, just an afterlife. If there were such a thing, that if I knew that I was going to be in that afterlife, no matter what I did, how moral of a person would I be? I wonder that. I don't know that I wouldn't be moral, but I wonder if I would be moral.
Well, I would be moral just because I'm a moral person.
Well, I would be too, but I do this philosophical thing. Okay. Would I be moral or would I not be moral? If I absolutely knew I was going to go to a better place no matter what.
Well, there's really no point in being moral. There's nothing better about being moral than about being totally amoral.
No, I agree. But what I'm saying is, what would you do here? Would I go out and rob grocery stores? Yeah, probably not. Would I go out and murder and rape and nah, it's not in my not where I'm coming from. I don't see that.
Yeah, but I don't do any of those things anyway, and I have no religious, axe hanging over my head.
And that's what I'm saying, is that would I do that anyway? No, I wouldn't. And why does it take a religious hammer? Really a sledgehammer for you to decide what your morality is or isn't. You've done this a lot. You do this all the time. You debate Christians, and I assume mostly Christians, all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to also assume that you get the, well, you're an atheist, and so you can't be moral. You must have no moral foundation. Well, you know what? Moral foundation comes from yourself.
Right. It doesn't come from a God.
Exactly.
But you also do get the people who say, if I didn't believe in a God, I would be out raping and, blowing things up and killing people and all that.
And I've heard you say that, and I think about, well, you know what? That person needs to be locked up right now.
Yeah, I mean, what I always say is, dude, you don't need a God, you need a therapist.
No, you need to be locked up.
Yeah, I mean, these are borderline sociopaths whose the only reason that they're being decent people is because they believe somebody's watching them all the time who's going to fuck them up if they don't do what they're supposed to.
Yeah, put a lightning rod up their ass or something.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, guys, you guys need to be taken out of the general population. You guys have problems.
Yeah, and that's just sick to me. That is just completely sick that people have that idea that if you don't have a God, you must be either amoral or immoral. And actually, think about this, Sevis. Most Christians you talk to, ask them next time, what's the definition of amoral? What's the definition of immoral? See if they can do that.
Oh, they can't even define their own morality. Come on.
Well, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, they won't be able to do it. I guarantee you.
No, I'm sure they won't.
Okay, our last news story. Sorry, guys, for carrying on so long. But this one, I try to put some kind of funny, interesting story in every week, and stuff is this too. Pakistan transgender candidate to run for office. A transgender Pakistani will run in the upcoming general elections on a ticket of equal rights, saying the community has more to offer than begging and dancing at weddings. For the first time in the May general elections, Pakistan's estimated 500,000 quote-unquote eunuchs are eligible to seek office after the Supreme Court ordered the government to register them as voters.
It's not just office. It's the first time they've ever been able to vote. Exactly.
So I think this is an interesting thing in a very strict Islamic country that transgenders are going to be able to run for office. What do you think about that?
Sometimes it's hard to believe just how backwards a lot of places in the world are. I had no idea before this story came up that I would think that in most places anybody can vote, or any man can vote, in these countries. And some of those people are men. I don't think they're getting operative sex changes in Muslim countries. So the men are going to stay men and the women are going to stay women. But I figured they would just, be able to vote. And let's face it, if you're gay, you're not going to be open about it. So who's going to know if you're a gay man and not be allowed to vote anyway? But to think that these people have, never been allowed to vote, that they've been forced to dance at parties and entertain people at weddings and that kind of thing is their only means of making an income, that's just bizarre to me.
Well, think about this. Let's say we had in either of our states, you live in California, I live in Arizona, a transgender candidate for Congress.
So?
There you go.
Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I say. Who cares? But what would, and I don't think this has happened. As far as I know, it hasn't happened anywhere. Maybe it has. Correct me if I'm wrong. Some other state where some transgender candidate has run for Congress. Would you vote for them?
Depending on what their platform is, sure. Their transgender state would have no bearing whatsoever.
And I agree with that. It would have nothing.
Wouldn't even enter into it.
Would never enter into my mind. But what would happen in the media, right?
Yep.
It would be all over the media that this person was a transgender male to female or vice versa person that would harm their campaign, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, there was like that huge thing a year or so ago It wasn't like Miss America, I don't think, but there was, a beauty pageant winner who turned out to be a transgender, and she got stripped of her crown, and they made this huge deal about it.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry, she was prettier than most of the other people up there. She should have won.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what, guys? I'm going to tell guys out here, I'm single. I'm a single dad. Okay. Now, I don't go out cruising the bars or anything for women, because I'm a single dad. But, be aware that maybe that woman you run into.
You should probably ask if it matters to you.
Yeah, if it matters to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, one of my best friends, I've known the guy for 30 some odd years. Growing up, he was the biggest homophobe you would ever meet. Now he's a pre-op transsexual, and he looks a lot better, and he's a lot happier than he ever was as a guy.
And you know what? That's great. I love it when people come to a conclusion that, again, that before they're scared because of religion or societal, norms, that they can't do this, and then they come out and say, hey, you know what? I'm a woman in a man's body, or I'm a man in a woman's body.
As long as you don't come out and say I'm a sheep in a human's body, I'm cool with that.
And that's fine with me. And you know what? Hey, folks, you're listening to a couple of conservatives here. You're thinking you're listening to a couple left-wing liberals, but no. What you're listening to here are two conservative people.
This is what happens when you cut the religion out of conservatism. You don't have to deal with any of that stupid bullshit.
I agree.
This is the main event.
And now for the main event. On this podcast, we've talked a lot about skepticism and atheism and conservatism and liberalism and everything else that's out there. But what we haven't really talked about yet is skepticism versus ideology. Now, how could you be a skeptic and have a specific ideology? It doesn't matter what it is, a political ideology or a social ideology. Well, yes, you can be, as long as you're willing to look at that ideology that you hold with a skeptic's mind. And that's what we want to delve into a little bit today.
Absolutely. And it's actually funny that this came up, because earlier on today I was talking to a friend who is a hardcore libertarian, and he was telling, we were discussing, why is it that the majority of Americans do not embrace the libertarian ideology? And he was saying, well, it's because most Americans just don't understand it. And I was saying, well, no, it's not necessarily that they don't understand it. It's that they have looked at it, they do understand it, and they have rejected it. Well, no, according to him, anybody who understands libertarianism must accept it because it is the most wonderful thing under the sun, and anybody who does not accept it, they cannot possibly understand it because they must be doing something wrong. That's the kind of thing that we're really talking about here, is these people are not willing to be skeptical of their own beliefs. And
Exactly.
that's something that's not religious, it's political. It happens across the board.
It does. And that's what I'm saying. It happens, and that's why, Cephas, I brought this up to you as a topic for this week, is that it doesn't happen only politically, it happens socially. Think about the skeptic that you know, and I know a few, that are against, for instance, gay marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why is that? I ask them these questions. Well, I just don't think it's right. I think a marriage is between a man and a woman. Well, why do you think that?
Well, actually, most of the people I know don't want government to be involved in marriage at all. They're not against gay marriage. They're against marriage, period.
Well, no. But I actually do know people that claim to be skeptics that think that gay marriage, for instance, is wrong. And I say, why? Explain to me. Convince me. Maybe I'll change my mind, because I think it's perfectly fine for, if you love somebody else, no matter if it's the same sex or another, and you want to get married, why shouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm entirely fine with that.
Yeah, and they say, well, it's because, I say, is it because that you were raised maybe as a Christian or as a Jew or, and a couple of these people have been raised as both of those religions. And even though you have rejected your religion overall, you still hold some of the tenets that they believe in.
Yeah.
And so that's an ideology to me. It's like feminism, men's rights movement. Think about all the isms out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing, it can be anything when you really get down to it. I mean, how many people are there out there who are just utter fanatics for a particular sports team? But they have no reason to be. I mean, personal example.
Chelsea.
Huh?
Sorry. Chelsea.
No. No. My parents were both born and raised in Chicago. So they were always huge Cubs fans. And I used to have a bet with them every single year that, they would bet me that the Cubs would go to the World Series, and I would bet them that they wouldn't. I never lost. But they'd keep making that bet every single year, and they'd being wrong every single year because loyalty to the team was more important than being right. There's a lot of people out there like that.
And I agree. And that's the problem is that, being a skeptic, is not only looking outward and being skeptical of other people's views. It's about being skeptical of your own. And I will admit 100% that there have been times, not many, but there have been times that I've had to do introspection into myself and say, you know what, out west, that's a stupid thing that you think. I've had to do that occasionally because that's what being a skeptic is. It's not only looking out there at what other people believe and what other people think. It's what you think and what you believe as well. So you have to do some introspection into yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot of people, as we know, as you and I both know, won't do that. They hold on to a certain belief, and that becomes actually, and we put the links in there, that becomes actually their worldview.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. And I don't know if it's because of the way I deconverted from Christianity or whatever, but I've always thought it was very, very important that every single belief that I actively hold, I can explain and I can rationalize every damn thing I believe. There's a lot of people you talk to who will say, why do you believe that? I have no idea. Well, then why the hell do you believe it? I can explain and debate everything I believe, and I can probably win. And if you've got something, if you can prove anything that I've come up with wrong, I'm more than happy to change. But there's so many people out there who they believe things because it's emotionally comfortable, because it makes them feel good, and because, it's easier to just say this is right than to actually come up with a reason why it's right.
And I agree with that. I mean, if you and I have had discussions offline many times about different things, and occasionally you come up with a little thing that pricks my mind and go, wow, I never really thought about it in that way. Well, that's a skeptic's response. A non-skeptic's response is, oh, he's full of shit. I'm not going to even countenance his comment.
Right.
But oh, wow, wait, I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, a skeptic, by definition, deals with things the way science does. Science does not take a position and say this position is absolutely right no matter what. Everything that science does is provisional. This matches the evidence that we have today. The evidence we get tomorrow, we might completely overturn the whole thing. Depends on what we find. But what we have today This is what we'll base our assumptions on what we have today, with the, keeping a mind open for tomorrow. And there's so many people who don't do that.
And you know what? I love my life. I'll be honest, with being a skeptic. I'm raising my daughter. She's 7, to be a skeptic about everything, even everything I say.
Yep.
Which, at 7 years old, she's going a little too far sometimes when I say, clean up your room. Why? But anyway, you know what I'm saying is that I want to raise my kids to be skeptics, to question everything, to be a rational person, and not just believe what you hear on the TV or the radio. Oh, yes. Oh, by the way, for some of you young people, yes, there is such a thing called radio or on the internet. Don't believe anything you see on the internet. Just because somebody says something on the internet doesn't make it true. Go out and investigate for yourself. Find out. Is it true? Is it not true?
Yep. Is there evidence for these claims? Verify
and
everything.
Again, is this person ideologically crippled? And that's what I call it, ideologically crippled.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And we could, you and I have had many discussions offline about a lot of people we consider ideologically crippled. And no, never going to name names on this podcast. But, where do these people get these ideas? Well, ideological.
Well, they get them because it feels good. They want this to be true. I mean, it's like we were talking about with rights. There are people who just wish this was the case. And because it makes them feel good, they're going to demand that it is true, whether it's true or not.
And yes, it doesn't make it so. And I am absolutely against that. And you know what? What I really want to do, honestly, and I can't do this, and you can't do this, I want to marginalize those people. Because as far as I'm concerned, they make the skeptic community, I hate using the word movement because it's not a movement. The skeptic community, they make them look bad. And they make they allow the Christianists and everybody else to come in and go, hey, look at this. This person said that, and, blah, blah, blah. And no.
Yeah, I mean, they essentially operate under the same mechanisms that religion does. I mean, what they're doing is exactly what the religious do.
It's an ideology. What is religion?
A delusion.
An ideology. And it's a shame that we have skeptics out there they're so, chest pounding on their feminism, their this or that, I don't want to. I'm sorry for the feminists out there. I'm sorry. I'm not ragging on you. I'm not.
The social justice crowd. Let's go that way.
Yes. Let me put it that way. The social justice crowd. I'm not ragging on you. But you guys have a huge voice out there where you could do some good.
Well, no, they have a huge voice, and I'm not going to say it's just feminism. There's an awful lot of isms, but they have a huge voice, but it's largely undeserved. It's not skeptical. Skepticism is hard work, people. It's not something that you just come by naturally. It's not something that produces, magically feel-good feelings just because you want it to. It could produce really harsh realities, but reality is reality. The biggest lie in the world is still a lie, no matter how good it feels. The most uncomfortable truth is still the truth, no matter how awful it feels. You have to be willing to embrace the truth and reject the lie, no matter how it makes you feel.
You may find out that what you believe is entirely invalid. And that's what I think. And that's what I go with every day. That what I believe, certain things in the world, might be invalid.
Yep, they could be. like I said, belief needs to be provisional. You cannot have a belief that is this way for all time and nothing can ever change it.
I mean,
that's not reality.
I have discussions with people all the time, like with you and other people. And like I said earlier, hey, wow, I never thought about it in that perspective because I never had that perspective before. Now, maybe let me put myself over there. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. And that's what a lot of people don't want to do, is say, I'm wrong.
Right, because they are more in tune with their ego than with reality.
And with their ideology.
Yeah.
They're more, they're entrenched with their ideology, and they refuse to say, I'm wrong. Where, like me, I have no problem saying I'm wrong.
Yep. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's easy. That's easy. Yeah, it's embarrassing. Sure. I get red-faced. Sure. Yeah. But you know what? I learned something.
Yes, I'm more in tune with reality, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that just does not hold for so many people, especially people who call themselves skeptics and just aren't.
And this is the thing that really, that's why I brought this up to you about skepticism versus ideology is that there are so many people out there that claim to be skeptics who are really just ideologists. Now, wait. Okay, I'm going to admit up front, I'm a conservative. Think what you think about me as that. But ask me questions before you stamp me to some place in your mind about who I am. Okay, ask me questions about what I think, about what I believe.
Well, most of them don't care what you think or believe. They're liberal, that you have to be the bad guy. So all evil things in the world, they can, ascribe to your position.
Well, I'm not the bad guy, and you're not the bad guy.
No.
We both know this, and we've asked liberals to come on this podcast and state their views.
Yeah, I'm happy to have anybody on who can discuss their position intelligently. But the people who are just sitting down going, well, I'm just right. No, that's not a debate. That's not a discussion. That's an assertion. And it's no more valid for you to say, I'm just right, than it is for a Christian to say he's just right. That's not the way it works. No,
and hey, folks, we want any of you, whether you're liberal, conservative, libertarian, whatever you are, non-political, non-religious, religious.
Anybody.
Anybody. We have
anybody with a brain.
Yes. We have a tab out there so you can submit to come on. No. We're not doing a thing, and Seth has said this in the tab. We're not, squelching beliefs or anything else. But if you have something that's an interesting argument on something that we think that anybody would like to hear, then we want to hear it.
Absolutely.
We want to hear your perspective. We don't really care where you come from.
Yeah, we are going to have a nice little debate about it, so make sure that you can defend it rationally. But by all means, we take all comers.
Bingo. We would love to have you on. Liberal, conservative, libertarian, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever. We would love to have you on.
Yeah, I would kill to have a rational theist on. I don't think they exist, but I would love to have one.
Oh, you know what? I think I can get one.
No, I don't think so, because if they were rational, they wouldn't be theists.
Anyway, to the next segment.
You believe what?
No. Oh, no.
All right. Last week we had a rather far-reaching discussion about laughable things in the Bible, especially the Old Testament. This week we're going to focus on Jesus, and even though we're about a month early, we're going to take on the mythical resurrection. This is perhaps the most important event in the Christian worldview, because if Jesus never died and was resurrected from the dead, then he never could have served as a substitutional sacrifice, and thus their sins are not forgiven, and none of them could ever qualify to enter heaven. Oh no, the horror. We only have to demonstrate that the resurrection never happened, that it is laughable, and we've destroyed the very core of Christianity. And the one thing I wanted to come up with first, something you've talked about before, is taking the Gospels and looking at them
laterally.
Yes.
Yes, not vertically, which most people do. Most people look at the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Okay, now I really want to take John out. I really want to take John out because you know what I think of John as is more of a Gnostic. It's more Gnostic, and I think that the only reason that was included in the New Testament was to pacify the Gnostics, because the whole Gospel of John, I mean, look at it. I mean, you've studied this. I know you studied this more than I have. It is a very Gnostic gospel.
I mean, that's true, but it is one of the four that are included in the Bible. And in fact, I'm going to throw in a couple of extras, because there are places where Acts can be used to correspond with some of these accounts. There's a couple of places where, like, 1 Corinthians can be used to correspond with different accounts. So we're actually going to take a look at some of the different elements of the resurrection story, and we're going to go across, and we're going to see what each different gospel or what each different book in the Bible says about these things, and how none of them agree.
Well, we have to start with the original, which is Mark. I mean, every New Testament scholar agrees that Mark is the originator of the other Gospels. Every scholar agrees with that. So what do you think about that?
Well, there's not really much to say about it.
Well, okay, let's go look at the resurrection in Mark.
Well, we're looking at these elements across all the Gospels, not just in Mark.
No, but we have to start with Mark, about what Mark said, and then because what Luke and Matthew say expand upon those elements of what Mark said. And so we have to look at that.
Not necessarily. Very often they just, they completely disagree with what Mark said.
Well, okay. Can we agree that the book of Mark was not written by somebody named Mark?
None of them were written by the people that have their names on them.
Yeah. That these people that wrote them are extremely educated in Greek, because these books were written in Greek and in Greek rhetoric. So that these people that wrote these books were educated.
Well, they had to be educated if they could write at all.
Well, again, think of the Pauline letters. Who wrote those letters?
We don't know for sure.
Well, most New Testament scholars think of, because there's 13 letters in the New Testament written by Paul.
Right.
Scholars think that only 6 of them are authentic. 6.
Right. Like I said, we don't know who wrote them all.
Yeah. And so if we go back to the Gospels and look at the resurrection, let's look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
And like I said, where they have something different to say, which is in very, very few places. I'll throw in like Acts and Corinthians and things like that.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's start off with something easy. Like, what time was it when the resurrection occurred? What do you think? I mean, just off the top of your head, what would you say, knowing the story?
Well, thinking about Jewish heritage, it had to occur in the morning.
Right. Was the sun up or was the sun down?
The sun had to be coming up if it was in the morning.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's because if you look at the 4 accounts, they all do agree it was very early in the morning. But in Mark, it says that it was just after sunrise, so it was light out. In John, it says it was still dark. The sun had not yet come up. Yeah, okay, you might be able to say, well, there's a little bit of play you can have there as to exactly when this thing happened. But you've got 2 accounts by 2 people who are supposedly witnesses who don't agree.
No. None of these people were witnesses.
All right, you're right. They weren't there, but the Christian tradition says that the Holy Spirit inspired these people, at which point in time they should at least know what the fuck they're talking about.
Okay, so but what I'm also saying is that everything came from, according to New Testament scholars, and I know you read this all the time. Mark was the originator. The book of Mark, whoever wrote that,
Right.
was the originator. And Matthew and Luke,
They came along later, and they were writing.
perjured. I'm sorry, not perjured, but
I don't know if perjury is the right word, but they were writing to a different audience than Mark was. So they modified the story. They added different things from different cultures to make the story appeal more to a different culture than Mark was written for.
yes, I agree with that. And so,
But, because if they were just stealing straight from Mark, they could not have gotten so many damn details just completely back-ass wrong. Because they're just wrong.
okay, so why are they wrong?
I've read a lot of different things, and nobody really knows for sure, because obviously we weren't around back then. But Mark was originally written to speak to a specific group, and it was specifically to speak to the Greeks. And then these stories were going around as verbal stories. And whoever wrote Matthew, and whoever wrote Luke, and whoever wrote John, and whoever wrote actually about five other Gospels who had these same stories, they didn't sit down with a copy of Mark and just copy it down. They were going from these verbal stories. And it's like a game of telephone. They got a lot of these stories wrong because they weren't quoting the book of Mark. They were just telling these stories, and the details changed in the transmission. And that's why they got a lot of these stories just wrong.
Okay, so let's go back to the original purpose. And this is a good discussion, by the way, the resurrection. Why did this not happen? And remember, I tweeted you earlier today about a guy on Skeptic who gave a couple of videos, by the way, about how the resurrection couldn't have occurred. And he was specifically talking about Joseph of Arimathea. Mathea. Potato. Anyway, that has always bothered me in my whole life, even as a kid. Who is this dude? Who is this guy? Where's Arimathea? Where is this city? This place? And if he's a member of the Sanhedrin, he's a member of the Sanhedrin of the Jewish Council in Jerusalem, and he is from Arimathea. That has always given me pause. What do you think?
Like pretty much everything else in the Bible, it's probably made up.
Well, of course it's made up.
I mean, the whole thing is just made up.
The next time I have a Christianist come up to me and say, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Okay, show me where Arimathea is on the map. Show me. Show me that city.
It's a city in Judea, but nobody knows where the hell it actually is.
Huh.
And let's face it, with all the biblical archaeology that goes on in that area, they should have found every last piece of shit anybody ever dropped in the country.
They've never even found Nazareth. They never even found Nazareth, the town where supposedly Jesus grew up. It's never existed. Israel Finkelstein is an Israeli archaeologist. I wish I had the book reference right now. Jeez, I'll put it on the link. I'll link it. Yeah, there was no such thing in Jesus' time as a town in Nazareth.
No, I mean, certainly there is today, but not
Not
historically.
then, not 2,000 years ago. And this guy is an archaeologist, a very well-known and very well-respected archaeologist. And he's an Israeli. And he actually, I don't know if he's an atheist or an agnostic or whatever. He comes from a Jewish background that he debunks most of the Bible, which I think is interesting. And so I'll try tomorrow, maybe later tonight, put a link to this guy's book, which is incredibly good. because I have it. I own it. He's an incredible archaeologist, and of course he's poo-pooed by the religionists in his field.
Well, sure, anybody who disagrees with them, they throw away.
Okay.
All right, well, let's look about who was actually mentioned going to the tomb. This is where all four Gospels get it wrong or get it different. In Mark, we have mentioned Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. That's three women going to the tomb. In Matthew, we have Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, who I assume would be the mother of James. That's two women. In Luke, we have Mary Magdalene, Joanna, who just came out of the blue, Mary the mother of James, and quote-unquote, the other women with them, which is more than three women. And in John, we only have Mary Magdalene who went. I guess everybody else went out for Starbucks. How can they all get this so completely wrong?
Well, actually, I was a guy that was dating Joanna back then. So, I don't know.
Oh, so we have you to blame. Okay.
Yeah, that's me. That's
all right.
Me to blame.
But let's look at why they went. In Mark, they're recorded as going to take spices to anoint the body. In Matthew, they went to look at the tomb. And in Luke, they also took spices they had prepared, but they did not define why they were going.
Well, understand that in the Jewish tradition, the body is anointed before it's put in the grave.
Right.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's my question. Why, okay, so let's just say everything is true with Joseph of Arimathea, which is not true. Let's just say that's all true. He was put into a hole in the wall and covered up. He would have been anointed at that point, okay? And why would women go there to anoint his body? Because if you look in the Bible, that's what they did. They went there to anoint his body. But he was already anointed beforehand.
Yeah, which is why a lot of people think that the people who wrote the four Gospels, or some of the Gospels, were not people who were familiar with Hebrew traditions.
So what is this?
Nobody can really go and look at these stories and say, well, these are obviously true stories. We can just keep moving on. In fact, it's probably easier if I just go ahead and knock out a bunch of these because they're all equally problematic to the religious. Let's go ahead and talk about something like, when was the stone moved away? If you take a look at Mark, Luke, and John, it says the stone's already been moved away by the time that the undetermined number of women show up. But in Matthew, the angel appears and rolls it away while they're waiting. That doesn't make any sense. In fact, who's actually mentioned at the tomb? Mark says one young man, Matthew says one angel, Luke says two men, and John says two angels. What is it? We could go on and on and on, but I think you've got the idea. Add to this the fact that Jesus was certainly not the only Messiah out there that died and rose again from the grave. There are actually a number of different examples, and these are more likely where they got the ideas. Dionysus allowed himself to be arrested and tried for blasphemy. He was a willing self-sacrifice. He was found guilty and executed, only to rise again from the grave 3 days later, where the women weeping at his tomb do not recognize him until he assumes his divine form. Does this sound at all familiar? How about Apollonius of Tyana, who was an early 1st century religious leader and miracle worker and a contemporary rival of Jesus? When, after having died and resurrected, a disciple, Demetrios, doesn't believe that he's really real, Apollonius lets him touch him, after which Demetrius believes he's true. Apollonius, after having spent many days in the company of disciples, and many others after his death, he ascends into heaven. And then how about Attis of Phrygia, who was crucified on a tree, from which his holy blood ran down to redeem the earth? He descended into the underworld. 3 days later, he was resurrected. It's really hard to believe that anyone thinks anything in the Bible is original.
Well, here's the thing, is that I have read, and I will at a later time put up references to that the stone, the rolling stone, actually didn't occur until 40 years after the supposed death of Jesus.
Well, that assumes that there was a death of Jesus, or there was a stone, or
was
a grave.
But you hear what I'm saying is that the Jews didn't put the rolling stone in front of the grave until around 70 to 80 AD. That's 40 to 50 years after the supposed death of this person called Jesus. I'll go back and look at my links, and I'll put up links to that.
Yeah, that's something I'd really like to see.
If anybody doesn't believe me.
I believe you.
Well, I don't care if you believe me or not. I'm thinking about the audience. But yeah, I mean, it's true. And when you read these links, you think, holy cow. Yeah, because these things happened after the destruction of Jerusalem from the Romans.
Yeah.
Okay, so people need to go back and read history. I'm sorry. I'm tired of trying to teach people basic history.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember the Christians all think that anything in the Bible is automatically history, and they don't bother to go look at anything even deeper than that.
Well, I know, but what we're trying to do here is to teach people what the true history is. I think that's what we're trying to do.
Well, I mean, the whole story is really just stupid. What we're trying to do is basically show people that the things that they've been taught since they were little kids, if you really sit down and look at it in depth, it just does not stand up to any degree of scrutiny. I mean, it's just, you look at this and go, why the hell did I believe any of this garbage?
Yeah, but it depends on your parents as well. I mean, if your parents tell you, Jesus is Lord, blah, 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 all this stuff, then you're going to grow up to believe that.
Yeah, but seriously, now I don't know, maybe people are just stupid, and that kind of explains it all. But I could not, as a reasonably rational adult, look at the Bible and read these stories, and supposedly these are things that these people are supposed to believe actually happened, but I could not read these stories and look at these huge discrepancies between the stories and just shrug my shoulders and go, well, it happened anyway.
But you did, right? You did at one point in your life, as I did at one point in my life. And what both of us did, is step back and look at it as a whole and go, no, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So please don't condemn those folks that do that, because you know what? You have neighbors there, and I have neighbors that are convincing their children of useless, horrible things that will occur to them if they don't believe.
Yeah, but most of the people who are doing that, they have no idea what the hell's in the Bible either. They've never read it. They've been programmed with this little set of instructions that this is what they're supposed to believe, but they've never gone off to check it out for themselves.
But you have your kids, and I have my kid, right?
Yep.
And I tell my kid, don't worry about that. You're as long as you're a good person, don't worry about that. What about heaven, Daddy?
No such thing.
There's no such thing, baby. There's no such thing. No matter what your mommy tells you, there's no such thing as heaven.
Yeah. Tell her to produce some evidence.
Yeah. And as long as you're a good person, you live a good life, and, I'll be proud of you forever. Will you really?
No, not really.
No. Yes, baby, forever. Forever. I'll be proud of you.
No, because I'll be dead, and all of the energy that made me me will just vanish into the universe and do something else, and I will cease to exist. So forever isn't real. Come on, let's be honest.
Oh man, you just killed my stroke. Because I love my baby. I do. Yeah. I know you love your kids. And, I want children. I want your children. I want my child to grow up in a rational society where they look at things. And that's what I'm trying to raise my son. She's now 7. That's to look at things. And when people tell her things to go, is that true? So sometimes she comes home from school and tells me, Daddy, XYZ told me ABC. Is that true? That's a good thing.
That's a wonderful thing. It's even better when they stop coming to ask you if it's true, and they start asking the people who made the claims, is this true, and how do you know it, and how can you prove it?
Well, she's only 7.
Oh, I know. She's a bit young to be expecting that out of, but that should be the ultimate goal, is not come running to you to have you sort out all the problems. It's how do you know? How do you know it? Where did you get your information, and where's your evidence? And I'm not taking anything you say seriously until you can produce those things.
And I guarantee you, and because, we know each other a little bit, I bet your kids do that every day.
Damn straight.
And God damn it, I am so fucking proud to have at least 2, because you have 2, right?
Yep.
Kids in California that can beat the fucking state, the state,
Not really.
No, they can't.
I don't know what you're talking about, so.
Well, I'm talking about the state, tests.
Oh yeah, my oldest daughter took it for the first time this year and passed it first time. So.
I was there in '68. I took that test because I had to take that test to get to freshman in high school. I was a junior high school, right? In '68. I was in the 100th percentile. And then the state came back and said to my mother and my father, oh no, your son cannot be in the 100th percentile. And my mother went, huh? He scored 100% in math, science, English, literature, blah, blah, blah. Also, he cannot be in the 100th percentile? What are you saying, California? Well, he makes other kids look bad.
Well, fuck the other kids. That would have been my response. In fact, it has been my response.
And this was in 1968. And so I actually didn't know this story until years later because I actually loved living in California. 68, 69. Those were the great years, the hippie years. And years later, I was in my late 20s, early 30s when my mother told me this story. I thought, really? And she said, yeah, your dad and I decided because of you, because, well, I was a student. And no, they were not going to raise me in California. And so we moved to Texas. California at the time was, out of 50 states, about number 3 on the calendar. Texas at the time was about 48th at the time.
Yeah.
Now that's reversed, by the way, unfortunately.
Hey, at least they're not trying to teach creationist shit in California.
No,
that's a Texas thing.
Do your kids go to public school?
Yep.
Yeah, mine does too. Here in Arizona, and yeah. Do you spend time with them on their homework?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do on mine as well. I'm just really sorry it's come to this. No, I am. I mean, I'm like I kind of got tears in my eyes, man. It's come to this where I have to, police my child's education. It offends me to no end.
I don't have to, so. Because now here, nobody tries to teach stupid religious shit in schools.
Yeah, well, I have to occasionally jump out there and go, oh, no, motherfucker, you are not teaching this shit.
No, the only time I ever had to do anything was I got a note home where they had to have a permission slip signed to be taught evolution, and I went in and I ripped them a shithole. I said, dude, no. This is fucking reality. You do not ask permission to be taught reality. If you got a bunch of religious shittards who are giving you problems, you show them all the legal cases where they have lost, and tell them to go fuck off.
Oh no! I did the exact same thing 6 months ago. My now 7-year-old. What? I have to provide a signature for teaching my daughter which I have taught her. I'm a geologist. I'm a geophysicist. Okay, I have multiple degrees. Okay, and that doesn't mean anything. Please don't take that as anything. But are you kidding me? You're gonna take my daughter and tell my daughter I have to give her permission? Actually, it was the opposite. To teach creationism to them. And I'm like, fuck no.
Oh no, I never. That never even came up.
Fuck no.
Yeah.
And actually, I pulled my girl out of school that day. Fuck no. You won't teach my daughter creationism.
Yeah, nobody out here is that stupid. It would never come up.
I'm a geologist
for a second.
I'm a geologist. I'm a geophysicist. I'm an engineer. Fuck no. You're not gonna teach my daughter this bullshit. And I complained to the school board about this. Fuck you. You people, I actually went to the school board and said, how can you do this? How can you take children? They said, well, we'll do what we want to do. I said, not my child. Not my child you won't.
Yeah, well, that's why we need educational reform.
Fuckers. I mean, that fucking thing pissed me off so much that I actually voted in the city elections, and I voted out a bunch of us, these anti-science people on our school board.
Luckily, we don't have any of those.
And on our city council. Think about it. City council. Anti-science on your city council.
Nope. I never have to worry about that.
Man, it's a crazy thing. I'm sorry.
And you wonder with the state of education why people believe the crap in the Bible.
I am amazed. I'm amazed.
Well, let's go ahead and close this up then. Well, thanks for listening for yet another week of the Bitchspot Report. We will be back again next Friday with more stuff.
And we will have amazing information for you.
We'll do our best.
Stories.
Anyway.
Because it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that unless you pay attention.
Yeah, and if you don't pay attention, you miss a lot, and you'd never get to deal with the reality of the world.
You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report with your hosts, Cephas and Out West. You can follow us on Twitter by following Bitchspot1 or JEH704. Visit our website at report.jdragononline.com. Tune in again next week for more conservative atheist rants. Thanks for listening.